we've chosen our path. We haven't decided not to retreat. We are going through the worst recession of the last 2 generations. Most of our best friends have been laid off. But we know markets are going to return. We know that our competitors will have their own disadvantages. And we are determined to have forest industry jobs in Canada based upon what the world needs, which is products of the highest environmental quality. Places that have gangsterism, illegal logging, lack of social responsibility, their capacity to sell into global markets will be constrained. And we are convinced, strictly from an economic point of view, that scarcity in this world will be in natural resources, and that the word commodity won't be applied to lumber, pulp, or paper. It'll be applied to all the things that are infinitely replicable. Computers, fancy chips, all modern electronics. Those things are an unlimited supply. PhDs and brilliant engineers are an unlimited supply. It's land, water, and energy, its nature, its natural resources, that will be the scarce resources. And Wilfrid Laurier was off by 100 years. If we learn to treasure and use intelligently our natural resources, the next century will belong to Canada because we have what is most scarce and most valuable. But that's only half of our advantage. The other half is that if you double global GDP, what's going to happen to the environment? And the most prized commodity, the most treasured commodity, and if you're thinking like a moneymaker, which is my job, the scarcity and therefore the bucks is going to be in goods with a top environmental credential. That's what the world's going to need. That's what it's going to treasure. That's what it's going to pay for. And so our economic strategy, our global strategy, our survival strategy in Canada's forest industry is and has to be not just to sell into markets where the Brazilians and the Russians are going to be shut out, but to sell the highest possible pedigreed, from an environmental quality perspective, products into those markets. In a world where deforestation is the single biggest contributor to greenhouse gases, Canada, because we have publicly owned forests, regenerates its forests by law. In a world in which the vast majority of operations, of logging operations, have no outside scrutiny, the vast majority of Canadian operations are subject to the scrutiny of certification systems. And we have more FSC in Canada than anywhere else in the world. CSA, I'm very, very proud of, and our Americans like their SFI, and we sell that into their markets. But our certification systems, compared to the rest of the world, creates very high standards. In a world in which is awash in incremental changes in energy efficiency, we've gone to 60% renewable energy and have an objective 100% renewable energy based on waste in our mills. In a world in which the consumer feels personal guilt about waste, we use every bit of the log. I think we're up to 98%. We have committed to taking every scrap, every single scrap of waste paper that people will give us and using it in our recycling mills. And we've reduced what goes to landfill by 40% and are continuing to improve that enormously. In a world awash in greenwash on climate change, we haven't committed to hiding our emissions in a hole in the ground or to paying someone in Ecuador not to cut down their forest. We've committed to carbon neutrality with no purchased offsets, cradle to grave, from the forest to the landfill, so that we can look our customers of the future in the eye and say, yes, it has integrity as a carbon neutral product. we are far from perfect. We're better than most. And we are 100% committed to getting better and better and better every single year. Our ambition is the race to the top in environmental quality, largely because that's where our future jobs are, but also that's where our hearts are. So how should the thinking of policy be informed by this? Well, some of it's pretty obvious. If we only think about how much environment we can sacrifice for jobs, or only think about how many jobs we'll sacrifice from the environment, we just don't get the future. The future is integrated. There is no jobs without environment. So that's one. Another is that we've always thought that our future, our pride, will be in making fancy computers. And a slight embarrassment at being sort of an economic colony working in natural resources. Wrong. The most precious thing is natural resources, and governments, policies, have to have industrial strategies, economic strategies, to maximize the economic benefit from our natural resources, to maximize our capacity to get into global value change in a way that realizes that they are precious for the whole planet.